Today, the church remembers Ellen Ferguson.
I remember Ellen Ferguson when I was a young nurse. My roommate worked in the nursery with her, and she was such a sweet, caring nurse and loved the babies there. As our youth group went around caroling, we often ended up at her house, and she so loved to hear the youth come and sing to her. And she truly, truly loved the United Methodist Women, and she was very sad when she couldn't make it to the meetings. Usually somebody would pick her up though, and she did make it to the monthly meeting, and she was always so gracious and so kind. Today we remember Ellen Ferguson.
Jim Crowder and Belle Crowder.
In 1924, Dad was born, the son of a Methodist preacher. Dad's been a member of this church since the 50s, was an assistant scoutmaster. He was also very proud to be the bus driver and mechanic for the Wesley Singers bus, which was called Mustard and Mayonnaise. Dad was very proud also to be in the choir and took great pleasure in pestering Dan Mahoney. Today we remember Jim Crowder.
And today also we remember Belle Crowder. Belle was born on Cinco de Mayo, which is May the 5th of 1924. She joined First Methodist Church in the 1950s, bringing her three sons, Kirby and Chip and Tracy. And they were active in the church as well, in the Scouts and in the youth group. And Belle was the first female owner of a real estate agency here in Johnson City, and she was real proud of that. And she returned back to First Methodist Church upon marrying Dad, and at that time joined a circle.
Her passion for over many years was painting, one of which hung here at the church for a long time. Belle passed away just 4 months after Jim on Sunday morning, April the 19th. She and Jim were both at Cornerstone Village for their last years. Belle was truly a Southern belle and had a lovely smile and the disposition to go with it. Today we remember Belle Crowder.
Brian Milby.
I was a stranger and you welcomed me. This scripture from St. Matthew's Gospel reminds us of Brian Milby's situation. He was a native of New York State and a member of another denomination. Yet one day he came by First Church and said he needed a place to worship. Jane Taylor asked him to come for a visit. She also asked Gerald and Susan Fields if they would provide transportation for him each week. Brian was an Army veteran and needed to be near a VA hospital for help with the management of a severe back pain he lived with each day. Members of our church were glad to welcome him here and into scripture study class, which he enjoyed each week. Brian stayed with First Church as long as he was physically able to be here. Though unable to locate family after his death, there were friends from his First Church family who attended his funeral, along with a contingent of Lowell veterans groups at the Mountain Home Cemetery. Today, the church remembers Brian Milby.
Bryson Harding.
I became acquainted with Bryson years ago when I was ushering one morning and looked up, and Bryson came into church in a light tan suit, a matching tie, and a Stetson hat. He looked very distinguished. He looked very dapper. And he reminded me of President Harry Truman. And I told Bryson that. Bryson laughed. He did have a sense of humor. And he told me that he was from Missouri. And he had an encounter with President Truman when he was a young man, when Bryson was a young man. Bryson was on the street, and he saw President Truman wrecked. Lo and behold, Bryson worked in insurance, handled that insurance claim. Since then, Bryson and I have joked numerous times about his resemblance with President Truman. Bryson served our country in the military, a very important note. He's a very active member of our church, and he belonged to the Wesley Sunday School class. His close friends were Coolidge and Edna Johnson, Betty and Alden Spear, Edna and Joe Nadeau, and Martha Hale's parents, H.J. and Mary Sheeran. They together enjoyed many Florida trips, fishing, playing bridge, and always dressing up for holidays. Bryson loved making things for children, especially his wife Lillian's daughter-in-law, Leona Rogers' kindergarten students. Bryson was an organizer, constantly coming up with games and activities for his friends and those that he became associated with when he was in the Asbury Senior Living Center. When Asbury and Johnson City closed, his love for the Methodist Church was so deep that he went to Kingsport, Asbury, rather than stay at another facility in Johnson City. Bryson was a respected, dignified man of God. Today, the church remembers Bryson Harding.
Nancy Jewell.
Nancy loved volunteering at the hospital. She did at the hospitality shop in the hospital. And she also did a lot of crocheting. She crocheted baby blankets for the newborns at the hospital. And she crocheted several baby blankets for my great-grandchildren and for other people in the church too. And she loved doing that. And they were so pretty. But I especially remember Nancy for singing in the choir. She was an alto. And I was very privileged to sit beside her in the choir. She had a beautiful alto voice, and if I got off key, all I had to do was listen to Nancy, and she'd get me right back on because she was most always right. She had a good alto voice. She was always right on key, and she was a real blessing to our choir. We remember Nancy Jewell.
Elizabeth Wells.
Elizabeth Wells was a gracious and dear friend to many of us. She loved First Church, her Sunday school class, United Methodist Women, and all her wonderful friends here at church. Elizabeth always greeted you with a smile and a hug, and loved to tell stories and hear stories, and was always very interested in everything you had to tell her. As the years went by and she was unable to come to church, she especially enjoyed her visits with Gerald Fields, playing the piano, and then on a couple of occasions she got a private concert with Susan playing her organ in her home. Today, the church remembers Elizabeth Wells.
Evelyn Moore.
I remember Evelyn Moore as being a true friend. It didn't matter if there was a significant age gap or other differences that tend to separate us. She loved her friends, family, and church family dearly. She was a faithful supporter of numerous First Church ministries throughout her long membership here. She was all about hospitality and was always a pleasure to be around. She was very strong-willed, yet caring and supportive. Today, the church remembers Evelyn Moore.
Katherine Mcclellan.
I met Katie in 4th grade. She was a year ahead of me, but we became really good friends. We were in Wesley Singers together as well as Sunday school here at the church all the way through high school until we left for college. Enjoyed lots of fun things here at the church. Our families all had their specific pew, and McClellans were 2 rows ahead of us. So that was fun to be close. Couldn't sit together, but we could see each other. Katie was quiet, but a whole lot of fun. She was very intelligent, but never boastful. And when she smiled, it was with her whole body. Katie was such a gentle soul. Today, we remember Katherine Elaine McClellan.
Robert Castrava.
Bob was a native of Connecticut, but he found his way south when he completed his seminary and was asked to pastor churches in Florida. So on that request, he came to Florida, and while there for several years, and when he was not pastoring churches, he became music director at some other churches and youth director as well. Bob was an accomplished musician, and if anyone who knew him knew that his favorite instrument, of course, was the keyboard, the piano. And he, at the time of his death, he was music director at the West Market Street United Methodist Church, where he was really loved and appreciated. He also used his musical talents to take in nursing homes. He'd take that portable keyboard of his, if they didn't have a piano, and go to the different area nursing homes, and of course, which they loved, and play the favorite hymns that so many of those residents knew and remembered and loved hearing. He also played at other churches in a kind of an approach to, I guess you'd have to say, evangelical approach, because the faith didn't matter. He went to the churches where requested or where asked or invited and played for the churches regardless of their faith, their various faiths. He was also, while he was here, an adjunct professor at ETSU in the music department, which of course was another area for him to not only form friendships but also to minister. Bob was a sports enthusiastic as well, and there again, he was able to make many friendships with people who enjoyed sports area, and he had a remarkable knowledge of teams and their achievements, of course, that always interested everybody. And it was another way for him to minister to people too and share his ministry. Bob is now resting in peace, and we who knew him, of course, will miss him along with his faithful companion, Linda. We will continue to miss him. But we are grateful for his blessing our life with his ministry and his other music, and his music ministry especially. And we are happy that he is, and we have to rejoice that he is now healed. He is no longer having to cope with his heart disease. He is healed, and he is rejoicing and with his reunion with loved ones who've gone on before and seeing Jesus face to face. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he hasn't found a way to involve music again, maybe joining the angels with their harps, whatever, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to know that he's also still making his music with the Lord's blessings. So to Bob, we say we miss you, but we rejoice with you that you are now where you are and in peace, and until we see you again, our love to you.
Today, the church remembers.